Yep.
Hello everyone. As you've heard a couple of times already, my name is Redmond. I work as a youth worker in the social services industry. In the industry, it is primarily made up of Aboriginal kids, aged generally teenage youth, so between 13 and 18, but we also have kids as young as 8 in our care. And all of these children come from very tragic backstories of domestic violence and abuse, and they've been removed from care, and they've either been fostered over the periods of time, and then in between that's where we work with these kids, basically in between foster care. And all these children are such unique and profoundly sweet individuals, but the nature of the system and the world we live in, some of those children really struggle to adapt to living a life in the world when you don't have parental figures and you have workers that are constantly rotating in and out to keep it going, because these kids need 24-hour care. And just the experience I had last night, I was in Hinterland Way working with an Aboriginal girl. She's 16, and she wanted to go to see a friend in Murwillumbah. And this young girl, even though she's very sweet, she has a history of violence and drug abuse and petty crime. So there's a lot of restrictions around trying to manage the behaviours and the outbursts and work with the child in their needs and their wants when it comes to their freedoms and what they can and can't do. And as it was my first shift, it's always a highly nuanced scenario, as these children are used to having new people all the time. So they're used to not having strong connections with people. So they're always can be very tense, they can be relaxed, they can be all kinds of different things. And generally there's a period of testing where you're figuring out what kind of person you are so that they can position themselves in response to you. And then after a period, they will reveal parts of their behaviors and then again continue to test that. So some of those behaviors I experienced last night were just trying to tell me to do a lot of different things for her around the house, and as it's my first shift with her, I wanted to be more accommodating to let her know that I was safe and I could work with her. And in that process there was some tense sort of verbal abuse and trying to work with that, and she wanted me to take her up to Murwillumbah. I took her up to Murwillumbah. Halfway there I got a call from our on-call team. So there's, just to have a little bit of break, there's a tiered structure of authority in between the youth worker, the on-call, the house managers, the therapeutic specialists. So as the youth worker in the groundwork, it's a very different experience than what the people in the office have. And the office is kind of like the parent figures, and they kind of make all the decisions. But in some sense, the youth workers are essentially not enforcing those rules, but more ensuring that you're working with the kid on an emotional level to get them to understand why those rules are there and working with them. So there's always a disagreement between the emotional nuanced nature of being a human being and being a child learning about the world, and the structures of a sort of office space that is, to a certain extent, like a corporate space, trying to manage and understand the psychological needs of the child to ensure that they can have a safe time in their placement. So there was a communication breakdown because I didn't know a lot of these nuances, as I knew, and there was some miscommunication in understanding what she could and couldn't do. And in that time, she became escalated and very physically violent with me, trying to strangle me, and verbally abusive towards me. And in this kind of environment, we provide TCI training techniques, therapeutic care intensive tools, which is to de-escalate. So these children escalate behaviors, and then they have an outburst stage, which results usually in some form of physical violence, or either a sexual behavior or a manipulative psychological behavior. And then generally it's violent. So my techniques that I used was very calmly speaking, slowly speaking, not too much eye contact, but enough to let her know that I'm being really present with her. Because in these moments, the child just needs to be seen when they reach these intense states where they don't know what's going on and they can't control their own bodily functions, and they are just responding to try to get what they believe is their needs met. So she wanted to go to this place. I received a call that she wasn't allowed to go to that place, and then there was the back and forth between trying to figure out how we reconcile that. In that time, there was a lot of verbal abuse, and we ended up de-escalating the situation by calling one of the youth workers, and in communication with him, it was okay for her to be able to go to this location. And it all ended up being quite clear. We drove there, and then there was a miscommunication about dropping her off in a public environment, having line of sight, and then being with friends, and there was just lots of miscommunication. And again, she was violent, posturing towards me, verbally abusive, trying to steal the car keys and the work phone. And it was just a very tense experience. And I've dealt with this a few times before, but it does take quite a long time for my own physical body to settle. And I've been spending all day really trying to settle myself and manage my emotions. It's a very difficult job, but through all of the difficulty of what these children go through, they're all sweet, innocent souls at the end of the day, and I believe they can be helped, but it's very, very difficult working life. Thank you very much.
Well done, Redmond.
My goodness, do you want to cuddle?